Close your eyes.
This world is not what you think it is. This world is not what you think it is.
Close your eyes.
Wolves in sheep's clothing have pulled the wool over our eyes. For almost 500 years, the masses have been thoroughly deceived by a cosmic fairy tale of astronomical proportions. We have been taught a falsehood so gigantic and diabolical that it has blinded us from our own experience and common sense, from seeing the world and the universe as they truly are. Through pseudoscience, books and programs, mass media and public education, universities and government propaganda, the world has been systematically brainwashed. Well, I'm in agreement so far. Slowly indoctrinated over centuries into the unquestioning belief of the greatest lie of all time. A multi-generational conspiracy has succeeded in the minds of the masses to pick up the fixed earth, shape it into a ball, spin it in circles, and throw it around the sun. The greatest cover-up of all time, NASA and Freemasonry's biggest secret, is that we are living on a plane, not a planet. That Earth is the flat, stationary center of the universe.
How dare you!
Hello, it's me. You know, indoctrination started while we were still naive, programming our beliefs. That inertia is the reason we don't feel the earth spinning. Hello, can you hear me? Did you ever stop to question the confession of gravity as a theory? Funny thing, force alone can be explained with buoyancy and density. The sun is closer than what they've told us, not 90 million miles away. To tell you not to lie, and there never was a space probe, and those planets you've left so wandering stars. Operation Fishbowl, there never was a South Pole. We're surrounded by walls of ice, and we clearly live inside of a glass door. Hello, how are you? Did you get a chance to join Flat Earth and Globe discussion group to discover all the truth? How the sun, the moon, the stars are all revolving around you. There's no more secret. The earth is stationary, it is fixed, unmovable. Hello from the brighter side. They fooled you with that CGI. While sending rockets into the sea and then fade
So Dave hosted a conspiracy investigation broadcast from Stand Up New York Comedy Labs. In its third year, fans of the show urged him, I love this, urged him to investigate the flat earth theory. Initially skeptical and dismissive of the idea, Dave eventually agreed to look into it. As he attempted to debunk the theory, he found himself becoming convinced that flat earth represents the true nature of the world. Now he's devoted to raising awareness about flat earth, viewing it as the most important topic of our time, especially given the current political and social climate. So previously an atheist, Dave's discovery that the earth is flat, non-rotating, intelligently created plane with a firmament led him to become a firm believer in God. Hallelujah. So let's get into this talk. And he's also got this app that's playing behind him. So first, Dave, just give us a more in-depth background of who you are, where you came from, and let's start talking about the flat earth.
Wow, that's I have so much I want to say. We only have 5 hours, so I'll try to condense it. No, I'm just kidding on that. There's an endless amount. You said so many things. Like, this world is so interesting right now. It is so interesting. The word bored is gone. It's gone. It doesn't exist anymore, right? Because there's so much information. Short about me, I was born and raised in Connecticut. I'm still here in Connecticut. I went to college and I went into corporate America, and I left corporate America, started my own company with a couple partners, and it was doing super well. It was doing amazing. Like, my father, if he was still alive, would be so proud of me. And I was doing the conspiracy podcast at the time, and the truth, especially after the 2020 debacle, I just like, I have to do something more, and it wasn't jiving well with my business. So I walked away from my own business, right? My father would have killed me if he was alive. Okay. I'm a grown man, but I'm afraid my father would have killed me because I walked away from everything I worked my entire life for to spread this message. How can this message be the most important message ever? Right? With all the stuff going on with, child trafficking and the COVIDs and everything. How can this be? This is the foundation of the lies, right? Why do they hide? And I'm going to show you how they hide it from you. So if you ever look for it, you're going to just find nonsense that's going to make you laugh at it and make you think I'm an idiot without ever listening to me. But you have to listen and look before you make up your mind. But the thing is, they've brainwashed everybody to laugh at flat earth and refuse to look at it. Hats off to the controllers. They did an amazing job programming people so much, to where they wouldn't look at it.
Dave, can I tell you that when I was about 9 years old, I told my mom I knew there were controllers and controlled, and that I was on the wrong side. So, yeah. I mean, it was my intuition that there were controllers out there. It's interesting you said that. So go ahead. Yeah. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, no problem. It's so they're, I'm gonna kind of go backwards here, because for those of you that are listening right now that think flat earth is stupid, hang in there. Just, and raise your hand and please ask your hardest questions, because I have answers for all of them. I had all those questions too. I knew so much that the earth was a globe that I didn't even have to look at it. That was in my head. There's no boats over the horizon, time zones, sunsets, daylight, everything proves, the stars moving. Everything doesn't prove the globe when you actually understand what you're seeing. And I could show you today. But the end is, why do they hide flat earth? Because flat earth brings you to God, right? You can live in a heliocentric world, Big Bang, made up by a Jesuit priest, not a scientist. Hey, there was nothing. It exploded, became everything. And then that everything turned into gas balls in a space vacuum, scientifically impossible. And then balls, and then a spark hit and life happened. And an amoeba turned into a frog that turned into a fish that turned into a monkey that turned into a human. Right? This is what they want you to believe. This is what they teach our kids in school. This is what I believe my whole life. And in that world, you can say there's a God or there's not a God. You can have both. You have the choice. But in the flat earth, even though we don't understand it fully, there is no option other than there is a creator. And so there are no atheists in flat earth. And this is not a religious thing. This is not a faith-based thing. This is a science. Science works on religion, and science is science. Science works for everybody. Religion only works for those that believe. So once you understand that there's no other choice. This place is intelligently designed. You have to accept the fact that there's a creator. My whole life, I'd be listening to a great conspiracy podcast. These guys are knocking it dead, 9/11. They're I'm like, this is great. I got 3 pages of notes. Then they're like, let's stop and pray. And I want to read a Bible verse. And I'm like, oh my God, they're religious fanatics. Tear up all the papers, unsubscribe, and I never listened again. That was me. Okay. So now I know that actually a majority of the world is like that. There's a large percentage. I don't know what it is. Is it more than 50%? I think so. Don't believe in God. And so I feel my calling is to bring people to the point where they can't deny God. And that's where I draw the line. I say, now the journey's yours. You have to figure out your relationship with God. Right? So, when people say, people come to me, you have to do this, you have to do it like this, or you're going to hell and this and that. That just pushes people away. Whether it's true or not, it doesn't matter. It pushes those who haven't found God yet, consciously. It pushes them away. So I just bring them to a point where they cannot deny God. And the flat earth is the one. I used to have on my podcast, I had a thing called Exposing the Big Three. And hope this doesn't trigger anybody. The Boston event. I'm going to put this on YouTube eventually, so I'm being careful what I say. The Boston event, the Connecticut school shooting that sounds like a beach, and the New York City event. I called Exposing the Big Three because those are just so clearly not what they were presented as. And I would wake people up to that, and they'd be like, wow, and then they go back to sleep. And they just forget. They forget. They're like, oh, there's different people, different administration, this and that, right? But when you wake somebody up to the nature of the reality that they're standing upon and who they are, where they are, the power of their mind. Oh, that's what I want to say. You were talking about the blood. I'm going to get to that in 1 second. You can't unsee it. And once you see it, it literally takes over the rest of your life. Every single day before I get out of bed, I have a couple of thoughts that go through my head, and one of them is the earth is flat, and this is an amazing realm that we live in, and what am I going to learn today? But you talked about your prayer changes your blood, okay? So that's just the beginning of what our minds can do and what blood can do, right? Everything is made from our blood, and they don't want you knowing that. If everyone finds out that there's a creator, everybody might start using prayer properly. Everybody might start taking their power back, right? Yeah. Last thing, and then I'll throw it back to you, is government, govern, control the mind, ment is the mind, govern, control the mind. They have no power. It doesn't matter who's president. It only matters what power we give them. Lies do not exist in nature. Nature is God's world. Lies only exist in your imagination. Power only exists in our imagination. Money only exists in our imagination. So if we play on their ball field with their fake money and believe their nonsense, they have us so confused. They don't know who's a man, who's a woman, what's going on. Used to be you got arrested for punching a woman in the eye. Now you get a gold medal. It's insanity. And that's where they have us so confused that the world is lost, except the few of us, the exponentially growing number of us that are finding our way. And that's what they're petrified of. So there you go.
I agree, because someone asked, well, what's really the big point of it? And well, it's because to uncover this major truth, this will perhaps shake the core of so many people where they will start really questioning a lot of the other things, because like you said, the sheeple, oh yeah, that's really bad, but they go back to sleep and they do it again. And it's a cycle. We keep going through this cycle. And then also knowing that there is a creator God. Wow, the awesome architect, the awesome artist, the awesome symphony conductor. So, and it puts the power back in our hands. That's what I see, But we have some questions already. So you tell me how you want to set this up. Do you want to start talking first and do that and save all the questions for later? Do you want to mix some of them?
You know what? There's no right way to do it. Since you have questions already, let's just start there, because it'll just veer off. And if there's anything that's not asked that needs to be said, I'll say it.
Great. All right, Sharon.
All right. So we have Gregory.
Yeah. All right. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I don't want to ask a question because I firmly believe that Dave is totally awesome. I've been following you, Carrie, ever since you started exposing the pandemic, and somehow it led me to Dave. and I was the one that suggested he got on your Tribe Talk, and I'm so happy right now that he's on. And I want you to
I'm
just
happy to.
spread, I want you to spread your truth, Dave. I love you. You're a freaking amazing man.
Thanks,
So
Gregory. I appreciate that. And also, please don't just believe me.
I
Okay.
know, I
No,
researched
you're
it
already
myself.
there. You've already gone down that path. But
Yeah.
if you're here hearing it for the first time, say, wow, that makes sense. Let me verify that. Try to verify everything.
I have.
Yeah, I know you have. I'm talking about other people. We've never met. I'm just saying because I heard that you've been following me for a while. So you've done it. You've done the work already.
Yeah.
And it's amazing.
Thank you, Carrie, for having him on. I appreciate it.
Right.
This is the time that we start looking at the truth. We got to look at it, even if it's uncomfortable. And even if we have disagreements, isn't it great we can still talk amongst each other?
Yeah.
So that's the point. Yeah. So Isaac, come on, Isaac.
Hey, what's up, brothers and sisters? David, I actually haven't heard of you, and I'm glad to have you on and close this so I can open these more. But I just wanted to share that I've been down this rabbit hole, and it was pushed on me, and I didn't want nothing to do with it. I was like, it's not a salvation issue. I couldn't care if it's a cube, right? But then I got hit with some biblical knowledge from a amazing man of God, and it's so fascinating, and it couldn't be further from the truth about how we're lied to about everything else. And we're not 660 million miles, 666 away from everything. We are the center of the universe, and God is not that far away. So it actually made a huge impact on me, and I just wanted to share that piece with y'all. But I want to close my mouth and listen.
Yeah, you know, if you look at the heliocentric model, that's the globe model. A lot of people don't even realize that everything is 6666. Take a screenshot of this, save this. You know, it's the Earth is traveling at 66.6 thousand miles an hour. What's that?
Whole screen on. I'm gonna have Sharon put the whole screen on so we can see exactly what you're saying a little more clearly.
It's you know, we go around the sun at 66,600 miles an hour. The Earth's orbit, the speed of sound is 666 knots. The gravity is 666 newtons. I mean, it's like, how many times do they have to do it? And this isn't even all of them. The list goes on and on and on and on. So it's just a little crazy.
I did not know this, Dave. This is very interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's worse. It's worse than that. The National Aeronautics and Space Administration is 666 if you add up all the letters. What else we have? This is just 6 times 6 times 600 is the circumference of the Earth. 0.666 miles per mile is the curvature. That's the 66.6 miles per hour around the sun. 6 times 6 times 60 is the diameter of the moon. I mean, how many times do they have to stick in our face? Right? And then I don't know. Listen, I'm not political, but this is Baphomet and this is Space Force. Flip it upside down. That is too much of a coincidence for me, even to the little star. Okay? What's going on with that? And then all of the people that go into that are on the International Space Station, which is a whole nother thing, they're all Freemasons. And this is let me see what this is. This is these guys do a flip, I think, at some point. And there's it's 666 and watt that the letters equal 6. I mean, it's always 666 with these guys. It's always 666. So, does that prove the Earth is flat? No. Right? The sigil of Satan is what they show us with the eclipse, which is a whole bunch of nonsense. The International Space Station is it's a sigil of Satan. It's pretty close. Is that just a coincidence? Maybe. That's it. I mean, I can go on. There's a ton to go on there with.
I mean, I've seen some videos that you've done where you're looking at the horizon and you're doing the measurements, and it doesn't make sense scientifically, you know.
Well, let's look at one thing. So we'll look at one proof, and then hopefully someone will have another question.
Okay.
So on a ball, there's a physical limit to. Got my ball here. So here's the ball, and you can't see my mouth because it's behind the curvature. If you zoomed in, you still couldn't see it because there's a physical curvature, right? So something's behind the curve. There's a physical curvature on a ball, right? So there's spherical geometry that will tell you how far you should be able to see. So they tell us our ball is 24,901 miles around. I almost had a brain meltdown there for a second. And so there is a curvature formula. That formula says if a 6 foot tall person standing at the edge of a perfectly calm ocean, not a single wave on it, perfectly clear, they should not be able to see the surface of the water beyond 3 miles because there's a 6 foot drop at 3 miles on the ball. That's a size that they tell us. That's what got me when I was like, the Earth can't be flat. I've seen ships go over the horizon. So I bought a super zoom camera when it first came out, the P900 from Nikon, and I zoomed in on a buoy that was over 10 miles away. Wait a minute, that should be behind, ready, 66.6 feet, but it should be behind 66 feet of curvature at 10 miles. And I had that camera a foot off the ground, and I could zoom in and see the water surface beyond it. Large bodies of water at rest lie flat, right? And water, when it's cold, will freeze flat, right? So this is we had a guy had this reservoir, lake, whatever it is, and he went out and he got his camera. It's frozen 6 inches off it, and he put these lights out here that are 8 miles, 7 miles, 6 miles, and 5 miles. Using their math, globe math, this one should be 30 feet over. I'm rounding down. I'm giving the ball the benefit of the doubt. I'm throwing refraction in there. 30 feet, 22 feet, 15 feet, 9 feet below a physical curve. Remember, you couldn't see my mouth, right? They should all be at different layers behind there, but they all magically refract up and stop right at eye level on the same line. At night, in the dark, cold, no humidity, on a perfectly frozen flat lake. Or maybe it's just flat, right? The answers for these things are, when they say, oh, that's because of this and because of that, it's so pathetic. It's unbelievable. And, people say, what about boats over the horizon, right? You don't see a boat out here. So as we're zooming in, we're increasing the angular size. And as we increase the angular size, all of a sudden you can go, oh, look, there's a boat, right? It's there. Now, look at the side of the boat. My finger can't hide the side of the boat. But if my finger was closer, look, the boat disappeared. It's going behind these waves, these smaller waves in the foreground. Ready? A 3-foot wave can hide a cruise ship behind it when you look at how perspective works. Cruise ship will get smaller and smaller and smaller. There's a point where things just don't go any farther into your depth of field. This gets more involved. We could spend an hour just talking about, about how that works. But
I think the celestial objects are a big thing for me. What about like the moon? The moon one day can be this small. The next day it's huge.
Right.
And then it's in a completely different spot of the, of space, above you. And it doesn't make sense because in 24 hours, how can it move that much? In 24 hours, how can it appear that much bigger or smaller to you? In the stars that are, going around, it seems like the Big Dipper, no matter where I go, is right there. It doesn't matter if I'm in the UK. If it doesn't matter where I am on the globe, it's still in the same position. It doesn't make sense to me. So I'm just looking at the celestial objects and how they're moving. They don't make sense. I don't know if anyone else has noticed that. Have you just kind of just looked in the sky before?
So let's look at this. So this is I'm standing here and there's this rock here, this ball. Cement, I would say, what they told us the moon is dusty and dirty. I'd say this is more reflective, but the sun's out How come that's not lighting me up? This moon lights me up. I can read a book by that moon. It casts my shadow on the ground. It's so bright. And it's reflecting sunlight. And the farther you are away from a light, the dimmer it gets exponentially. I'm standing right next to this. It should be way brighter than this. This actually, if I was 100 miles from it, should be brighter than the sun for us to see it at the brightness we see it. This is like, you got to you got to actually think this stuff through. It's called the inverse square law of light. Every time you double the distance of something, it's a quarter of the brightness. Every time you half the distance of something, it gets 4 times brighter. So if this is 1 lumen, halfway to the moon, it's 4. Halfway from there is 16, 30, 32? No, 64. Right? And it goes, and by the time you're 100 miles from the moon, it should be brighter than the sun. Magnitude's brighter, but I'm just going to say brighter than the sun because you can't fathom what brighter than the sun is. No one's ever seen brighter than the sun, right? But it would be magnitudes brighter than the sun. And so that's the first problem with the moon, right? When you start really analyzing these things, we don't have all of the answers, but we can falsify the globe model. We can falsify the heliocentric balls floating in a space vacuum model, and falsification is independent of replacement.
Okay. So looking at all these things, do you think a lot of people have this problem? They're like, well, can you go to space? Can you do all these things? And, to me, I don't know what you say, but, the Bible talks about the heavens. There are different heavens, different layers. What do you think about that?
I think that those heavens, layers of heaven are much closer than we think. I think, that water holds memory. You're talking about blood and prayer, right? So water, they talk about the heavens above us, a non-physical realm, right? Water is everything. I have a video on the app called "What is Water," and it talks about water and God and how water is everywhere. Water is just like God. It can be related to God in a lot of ways. We're water. Water, God's within us. Water's within us. Water's everywhere. God is the source of life. Water is the source of life. But when you look at the heavens above. So real clouds, when there's real cumulus clouds with sharp edges, they're kind of morphing. They kind of look brain-like. They look sentient to me. I see them as sentient, right? But then when there's evil up there spraying stuff into the sky, they turn into a slurry. It's literally a war. Now, people are like, oh, why would they spray themselves? They're killing themselves. I don't think it's about poisoning us. They may be poisoning us, but I think it's a war in the heavens right above us. That's me talking. That's my speculation. But, to believe that, gravity holds everything down, gravity holds the air down, but trillions of pounds of water can float in the sky in clouds, that's stupid.
It doesn't make sense.
Right. You're not stupid. Now, my shirt, I'll lift it up. It's stupid. Okay? You're not stupid. It's stupid.
Well, I like the plasma theory more, the fourth state of matter, plasma. And that's truly what can hold up the water, water molecules. It's 10 to the 36 times more powerful than gravity, right?
You've been listening.
This goes more into, and then that goes into our heart. Our heart produces a plasma, our blood can produce a plasma, and we have control over that. The more we get into closer with God, into that state of being close with Him, our Creator, the more we, our energy, our frequency is higher, and we have a more structured or plasma state. I just love that.
Right.
But that's a power that comes from our heart that's measurable. We can measure that.
Right. So,
and then that goes into quantum physics and space time too. What
does flat Earth have to do with salvation? How do you dilute something? If I had a glass of milk, what's the best way to dilute it? Dump it into a swimming pool? That would be probably wouldn't even notice it. Dump it into the ocean? It's gone, right? Right? Dilute it. How do you dilute God? You pour it into infinite space, expanding space. They tell us our universe is expanding it's like a billion miles a second or a minute or a day. I forget. It doesn't matter. It's expanding into nothing, billions of miles constantly, every moment. What does that do? That some people go, well, that just makes God all powerful. That dilutes God, right? Like, how can God is, if you read the Bible, God is right above us. It's the center of earth. You know, a lot of people say Polaris is where God's throne is. I can't deny that. I mean, there's a lot of evidence up there. But can we go to space, right? So this is on the International Space Station, right? Why, if you catch them faking it once, watch right under his arm here. Look, green screen. There's a green screen right there.
My gosh, they can't even do that right.
And here's the thing. I go back and forth. Are they that stupid, or is it revelation of the method? Now watch this guy. His hand's still there. Okay. So these are just green screen failures. Now they'll go, well, no, that's just cosmic rays. This is a submarine. This is space. It's got a tortilla. Literally is going to separate them from that. Where's the cover? Where's the hatch separating them, keeping the air in the space station, right? So this is on the Chinese space station that appeared out of nowhere a couple years ago. They also forgot to film its construction, and they got a glass of water on the table. How do you have a glass of water in space? Right?
Maybe they're trying to tell us something. Maybe they're leaving us behind as clues.
Right. During this live stream, the colors change, showing that they're using, green screens, everything brown turned blue. And then this one, it's a little hard to see. His head goes out of reach. Look, it went outside of the green screen. Half his head disappeared, right? Because they're on. This is all done in a studio, and they've even made mistakes where they're like, oh, we're here outside of Maine or wherever, right now, and it's like, wait, what? And then also, I call this lady Medusa. Would they allow anyone with long hair on the space station? I mean, look at military pilots. They're all tightly shaved heads and stuff, right? But on a space station where everything floats around, they're up here, with long hair, doing these things. Now, they always like playing with water, but look, the water goes through the paddle because it's called augmented reality. They're playing with nothing. They're just doing that. So you catch them doing it once, they're finished. But we caught them hundreds and hundreds. This is just a small collection. So, what do they do up there? NASA gets $80 million a day. 1 month's budget could solve the homeless problem in this country. $80 million a day. What would $80 million do for your city? For your, if you have a homeless problem, right? And then this guy, they're always playing with wires. Oh, look, it's floaty, right? It goes right through his hand. It goes right through his wrist. Watch near his watch. The whole wire goes right through his hand. Watch, it'll go right through his wrist because it's not real. Did that? So, can we go to space? The answer is, what is space? I don't believe that we can get through the firmament that's above us. I had a whistleblower from NASA talking to me, and he was saying that, at about 72,000 feet, it turns into plasma, and then it becomes liquid, and then it becomes solid. And even though they have the ability to go up there and explore, they're forbidden. This guy sticks his microphone right into his neck. The microphone is inside of his neck during this live broadcast.
I do believe we have portals, though.
Portals?
Yeah, what do you think about that? Going to different realms. Like in our space, we can fit lots of different realms, right? Depending on the frequency, right?
Well, so in the heliocentric world, to believe in aliens, you have to believe in folding space and portals and all sorts of stuff to go these distances. They tell us that our closest star is 4.5 light years away, which is about 25 trillion miles, right? 25 trillion miles. Okay, well, that doesn't sound that bad. We're 75 trillion in debt. That's only a third of that in numbers, right? But Carrie, you've listened to some of my stuff. Do you know how long 1 trillion seconds is?
How long it is?
How long? If you can guess how long 1 trillion seconds is, I will give you and your audience 1 Bitcoin to splurge on a big party. Okay, you have to guess it within 1 day.
Put it in the chat real fast.
No help. You have to guess it within 1 day. 5 seconds. 4, 3. Come on.
What? 10 meters. I don't know. 1 trillion. I don't know.
What? How long is 1 trillion seconds in time? Is it a year? Is it 100 years? What is it? You're Google. People are Googling.
Everybody, like it's going to be The Price is Right. Show me how many years?
31,000 years.
Okay, well, I was way off.
Okay, so just to show you how big that number is, if we were traveling a mile per second for 31,000 years, we've only gone 1 trillion miles. We got to do that 24 more times to get to the closest star. When we get there, we find out there's no life there. We got to go to the next star, which is multitudes farther. Okay. That's ridiculous. So you have to fold space to get there. You have to, maybe Elon will lend me a rocket. It goes 100,000 miles an hour. It'll only take us 28,000 years to get there now.
And light is very malleable, so the speed of light, we can alter that quite a bit.
Or if you want to believe in extra planets, maybe it's as simple as this. We live here in the center, right? This is our world right here, right? South America, right? And out here is extra territory, extra terra, more land, extra territory. Extraterrestrial means of the earth. So out here is more land, right? That's just a few thousand miles away.
So beyond the ice wall.
Beyond what we call Antarctica. Antarctica is the highest land on Earth, more than double the height of anything else. Listen, we don't have to speculate what's beyond Antarctica to prove the Earth is flat. But I love talking about, there's all sorts of books, there's all sorts of stuff. There's even some biblical stuff that talks about more land. But some people say, well, no, the God says there's a dome and the sun is within the dome. We can talk about that all day. I'm okay with that. But I think that there's more land. I think that the other planets are the pieces of the plane, if you will. And if we lived here, like let's say the world was like this now, again, you don't have to believe in any of this. We live here in the center. This is our pond, right? There's other ponds here, right?
Interesting.
And those are just tens of thousands of miles away.
I'll tell you something about my friend, married a guy who worked in Antarctica for 5 years.
Yeah.
He's fire rescue. Lots and lots of fires happen there. A lot of dangerous fires, by the way. And they had to do rescues on people, humans. They said that a lot of times they had to be very careful, even if they were extremely hurt, how fast they brought them up from down in Antarctica, because they had to act like they had the bends. They could get the bends just like they were on the water. They weren't in the water, but yet they acted like it. So they had to bring up quite slowly. I mean, think about that, right? That's quite interesting. So what is below there that they would have to bring them up so slowly, like they were down into the ocean, but yet they weren't in the water? Isn't that interesting?
That is very interesting. I have never heard that. I'd like to learn more about that. But there's all sorts of evidence that Antarctica is not a continent at the bottom of a ball, and it is something. It's something else. Let me run through this. Take about 2 minutes. Here's a ship tracking site. You can see all the cargo ships, cruise ships of the world, and click on them. It gives you all the information. But we saw a ship out here, 730 miles inside the shoreline of Antarctica. How did it get there? 1.9 miles above sea level. How did it get there? We saw another one, which was 905 miles in. That's over 2 miles above sea level. How did it get there? Right? So people don't want to answer that. So when we look at, this is an old map that was found in a Buddhist temple, and it was published in 1910 or somewhere around there in Hawaiian magazine, a Hawaiian newspaper, showing all of these continents out here. So what is going on there? So here is there's an island called on one of the ships. Hold on. One of the ships that we clicked on, it said it didn't give us any information other than the ship was 850 meters long, 80 meters wide. That's gigantic. And it was registered to the nation of Kiribati, or Kiribati as it's pronounced, but it's spelled Kiribati. And and that's all it said. It didn't tell it with no destination, the regular information wasn't there. So when we zoomed in on Kiribati, I had to put a pin on it because it's a tiny little sandbar in the middle of nowhere. right? And I know you do a little research on Kiribati, you find out that all these countries, China, America, Vietnam, they all say it's a very important trade route. Wait a minute. Why do you have to stop here? If it's for this island, what are you going to get? I mean, it's sand. There's just some, there's nothing there. America gave them $10 billion recently. For what? You didn't hear about that. And on that island, somebody found a Captain Cook, hotel, bed and breakfast, whatever. Captain Cook is the guy that tried to circumnavigate Antarctica, which should be 13,000 miles around. It took him 3.5 years. He went over 68,000 miles, which doesn't sound like a globe, but that's just interesting. That doesn't prove anything. And then when we look at the ships that are all hooking up to their gigantic pier, if we click on any of them, it says destination unknown or destination Christmas Island. Those were the only two options. Christmas Island. What's that about? And if you look into Christmas and all of that, and Santa and Satan and NASA and, T minus out of, NASA, and then they talk about T minus, NASA is Satan, is an anagram for Satan with the T. So then you look a little farther and you find out they did all this nuke testing there. I don't know if you guys are aware that nuclear bombs are not as described. Are you guys aware of the nuke hoax?
They're not. I know the radiation is not.
Oh boy! All right, we'll go there. We'll go there in a minute. And this is the thing. First I'm going to take your ball away, then I'm going to take your nuclear bombs away, and next thing I'm going to be telling you that vaccines aren't good for you or something like that. So time zones on a ball would be 24 lines from the North Pole to the South Pole, sectioning up the world like the sections in an orange. Right? That's how time zones work. Right. And so if we look at all the time zones, that would be how the time zones work. But the time zones don't do that. They're very weird. And the International Dateline does this. It goes across 3.5 time zones. It's like, why would it do that unless you're trying to fudge everything onto a ball? And what's at what I call the most interesting spot? Kiribati, right there. Kiribati. Right. And so that's fascinating. And then funny thing is, when all of these videos about this started going viral, I'm going to get to a good point in a second. They changed the name of the island. So you Google it, it brings you to another island on the other side of the world, and they changed the name from Kiribati to Karamati. This just happened like a couple months ago. Right?
Why do you think they changed the name?
Because they don't want people Googling Kiribati and finding it and looking at it and wanting to go there and wanting to investigate. They're literally trying to, you tell me why they changed it. I mean, maybe it's a Mandela effect or something, right?
Someone asked if you could give us I feel like 3 different facts of why we have to think about flat Earth. I mean, these are really interesting because we're being lied to.
Yeah.
One thing after another, lie. Get that.
I will do that in 1 second. Let me just finish this. Okay. There's 19 time zones in the north, 24 time zones between the tropics, and 32 time zones on the outside. How does that work on a ball? They should just be 24 time zones from top to bottom, right? That works on a flat Earth, but if you wrap it around, all of these 32 will have to squeeze in tighter so you can pretend that they don't exist. But they're all out in the ocean, so there's really no way to verify them. So just finishing it. So why would it be called why would it be an important trade route? Well, what if there was a trade route from Kiribati out here, right? Out here to these other lands. What if there's other civilizations, advanced civilizations out there? What if they're trading tuna fish, computer chips, weapons, children? I don't know. Right? What if there's other ones? How would you know? Because you never even heard about it until this conversation right here.
Yeah.
And how did those ships get in the middle of Antarctica? So what was the question? What did you want me to answer?
Somebody just wanted to say, hey, here's some 3 facts about flat Earth. It's probably
or why it matters, or proofs of flat Earth.
Proof of flat Earth. Yeah.
All right. So we can see too far. That's a good one. I showed you there is no curvature. And you know, when I started seeing things farther, I said, well, maybe the curvature formula is wrong, and found out it's not. It actually benefits the globe. And I was like, well, maybe the Earth is just bigger. And then we have observations that'll show that the Earth has to be over 1,000 times bigger. If the Earth is 1,000 times bigger, maybe there's 7 or 8 thousand continents, and not just 7 or 8, however you count. Okay, so that's a problem. That's a problem right there. But you still have to account for curvature, and you'd be able to measure it even 1,000 times bigger. And there is never, ever, ever any curvature. If you try to Google flat Earth, you won't find anything. But on my app, which can be found at flatearthdave.com, and I'm not, I just put it out there to save everybody time. There's a question mark button right here, and up come the frequently asked questions. Right?
I love it. That's
Where does the sun go? Why the lie? Those right there are worth the app itself. They're amazing. Also on the app, if you hit there's a button that looks like a spider web right here below the images button. And there's all sorts of resources here, but this is my favorite right here. Full-length videos, flat Earth movies. Awesome work. Whether you believe it or not. And then here's the challenge. I have every day on the app, there's a new featured video right here. All right. I say watch that every day for 2 weeks. At the end of that 2 weeks, if you can come up with one globe proof after checking the FAQ page, you win 3 Bitcoins. Or you can just go to
the challenge.
Yeah. Or you can just go to that movies list and watch the first 3 or any 3, and then send me your globe proof. But I have to forewarn you.
Love that.
You will become a flat earther if you take either one of those challenges.
What do you think about Admiral Byrd, Project High Jump? I love bringing that up just because what it does is it stimulates people to think a little differently. Like, oh, I thought there's nothing down there. I thought there was no one else down there, or nothing else down there. So I like to bring up that point, was it right after World War II? Yeah.
Yeah, Admiral Byrd did Project High Jump, right? And the reason it's high jump is because the average height of Antarctica is that much higher than all of the other continents. Okay, so it is large bodies of water at rest need containment. Water needs containment. Antarctica is just the shoreline. It's not a wall like the Game of Thrones. Okay, it's a shoreline that's really high. It contains our world. How thick is it? You want to call it a wall. If it was 10 feet thick, you could call it a wall. If it was a mile thick, you could call it a really thick wall. If it's 1,000 miles thick, I don't know. Is that still a wall, or is that a continent, or is that just land? Right. So that's Project High Jump. And it wasn't a small thing. He had a whole fleet of planes and ships and stuff. And there's reports of them crashing into something in midair. And in the 1959 Encyclopedia Americana, it says under Antarctica, it says that 85 degrees south, the dome is 13,000 feet high. What's that about? Why are they talking about the dome being 13,000 feet high?
Yeah, they supposedly went there and they got their butts kicked, right? There was some kind of...
That is the one story is they got their butts kicked, they were sent back, and the aliens and Russians, and it's a bunch of nonsense. So,
they're aliens. No, it could just be another. It's inhabited by some other people, right?
Right. But he came back and there was a whole ticker tape parade, and then he went on the news and said he talked about more lands bigger than America beyond the South Pole. Well, coming from where they came from, beyond the South Pole would be in between Australia and Africa, right? Don't you think they would notice land bigger than the United States? No one has ever set eyes upon, he said, right? And it's weird. And 6 months later, he died, strangely in his sleep. But during his interview, he's got this flat Earth map with a clock on it, right? Do you know what the most accurate clock in the world is? It's not a Swiss watch. It's the sky clock. The sky clock is more accurate than any watch because all watches go by time, which is the sky clock. The sky clock defines.
The atomic clocks, the one in Denver and the one in the UK.
Yeah, but how do they measure time? They're measuring time based on the movement of the sky. The sky tells us what a day is. The sky tells us what time it is.
I don't think that's what they're doing, but time is very malleable. I mean, that's very provable. The way how fast you go, gravity, a person can affect time. A person with their electromagnetic frequency can affect time. So time is dependent on many different factors, and water itself will slow down time, all kinds of things. And we found out that the speed of light actually can fluctuate itself.
Oh, so 100%.
When we get into quantum physics, it's a whole new world.
Right.
I think that you can't really say this is not true, because you have to understand how many dimensions are we talking about going into the quantum field. But I think the main point of this, I want people to understand, is we've been lied to, you guys.
Right.
Everything.
Right.
Everything.
Let's another one that comes up is satellites. People love talking about, well, what about satellites, right? So satellites are not what we think they are. Okay, they're not. On a heliocentric model. Let me show you. The Earth is spinning at 1,000 miles an hour. So a geostationary satellite is a satellite that stays over the United States. So let's just say it's over the middle of America. Well, the Earth is spinning at 1,000 miles an hour. So that satellite's got to go up in the air and stay and match that spin, which is faster than the Earth is spinning because it's making a bigger circle. So it's got to stay over. It's got to stay over the Earth at that exact spot. But at the same time as we're spinning, we're circling the sun at 66,000 miles an hour, and not a circle. It's in an oval, speeding up and slowing down, speeding up and slowing down. We're chasing the sun at 500,000 miles per hour. Somehow that satellite is matching all of those motions and staying over America. I mean, most people's minds just melt at this point because they can't figure it out because we weren't taught to think spatially like this, right? Now think about this. You ever track your phone or use something in GPS tracking? It'll tell you if the phone's at your next door neighbor's house, it's in your car, it's in your house. It's pretty darn accurate, okay? You have to believe that there's 3 or more satellites that are communicating with that phone, and they can tell the difference between 10 feet, right? And it's measuring the speed of light. It's measuring, nanoseconds, it's measuring the tiny differences in seconds. Think about this. It still works perfectly accurately when there's a storm going on, when there's clouds, when there's fog, when it's cold, when it's hot. So that provenly changes the speed that those signals can get there. When the reality is your GPS is just done by towers that are not moving on the ground, triangulating your position, and they always work in the same position all the time. This is ridiculous. Excuse me.
Dave, we got Pamela is wanting to ask a question. Do you mind if she chimes in here?
I love questions.
Okay. Pamela.
Dave.
Yes.
I don't know whether to love you or hate you.
I get that a lot. I get that a lot.
I'm sure you've heard that.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's obvious that we've been lied to about everything. I mean, my philosophy is the more I learn, the more I realize how little I know. And it's just another layer of an onion peeled. So one of my questions is, shouldn't all pilots know the Earth is flat?
Yes and no, because they're just, I have a handful of pilots, American Airlines, excuse me, Qantas Airlines, Delta, all of these guys, they all know the Earth is flat. All the Qantas pilots know because they're the ones that have to do these southern routes, which make no sense on a globe. And, but you don't need to know the Earth is flat. Although in your manuals, it says treat the Earth as a non-rotating level plane, a non-moving, non-rotating level plane. That's how they treat it for all purposes. To be a pilot, you have to be able to take off and fly. He also told me he's a veteran, a pilot. He's been doing it for, I don't know, 20, 30 years. And he said when he first started, you had to know how to rebuild that plane in order to fly it. You want to fly the 737, you have to know how to build it inside and out. Now they don't teach the pilots anything. The pilot will ask in flight school, how does that work? And they go, you don't need to know. You don't need to know. Right. And so they're just a bunch of bus drivers up there. The plane flies itself. AI tells them, you ever leave your gate a half hour late? Sure. But you always get there on time because they know how to put you in different wind currents. They know how to keep the system working. Excuse me. So,
right.
so there's tons of pilots that know and some that don't know. But on the app right here, just if you go to the FAQ page, there's are all pilots and scientists in on it right here. And there is there's tons and tons and tons of here, let me click that. So, oh yeah, I just put this video out just the other day. A pilot, he got schooled, but there's tons of videos, and all of these are being hidden from you. But this one right here, 3 hours. We got 28 pilots, commercial pilots, telling their testimony about how the Earth is level and stationary. Years ago, we had a KLM pilot on our show Globebusters, who totally just laid it out as like unbelievable, amazing. And next day she was grounded. So again, if you want to, keep your career in something, you can't go against the mainstream.
So there has to be something to it if they're getting they're penalizing and there's repercussions for talking about this, right?
Yeah,
more.
It's absolutely amazing. Let me show you. This is another proof that I love, if I can find it.
Okay. Yeah, and so while you're doing that, I mean, so if you're up, let's just say, before they get really high, 10,000 feet, I mean, how expansive is the view? I mean, if you have a view of many, many, many miles and it's flat, it's flat. Yes?
Yeah, they don't do they're not measuring. We just on the ground, we can see farther than we can see. I live on Long Island Sound. It's 5.5, 6, 7 miles across, depending on where I look. I can see the beach. I should not be able to see the beach. When I'm sitting, I should not be able to see it. I can see it. I can zoom in with my P1000 camera. I can see people sitting on the beach. I can see the water lapping on the shore, right? That's impossible on a globe. It's impossible. I can look from here to New York City. I'm right down Long Island Sound, and 25 miles away, I can see underneath the Whitestone Bridge. I should not be able to see the top of the stanchions that hold the bridge up. That should all be behind the curve. I can see underneath it. Some days, I can't see the deck of the bridge. Some days, I can't see the bridge at all. That doesn't mean that the Earth is flexing. It just means the visibility is different, right?
Yeah, and I have questions about the equator. And, I mean, just like from Pennsylvania to Florida, which isn't that far miles wise, there's a dramatic difference. Obviously, I assume it has to do with the equator, but it's not that much of a distance, so that, it's the sun is so much more, the sun's so much more intense in Florida than it is in Pennsylvania.
Let me answer that. That's a seasons question. That's one of my favorite topics. But if we're on a spinning globe, this is how planes would have to fly if they're flying north-south. Okay. So here it's just pirouetting. Here it's moving 1,000 miles an hour sideways. And then it has to slow down and speed up and slow down and speed up, right? This is a physical impossibility to do this. And here is how you would feel if you're on an airplane on a ball. You're at the top and you're flying over the curve, and these stars in the distance would rise up, because if I'm looking forward, I see stars in front of the airplane, but as I fly over the Earth, those stars are going to end up being above me because I'm diving over the Earth, right? That's what you should see if the Earth was a globe. So here's a flight from, I think it was Berlin to Brazil, and we're looking at these stars, 4,000 miles. This star should be above them when they get to Brazil because the plane's going like this. This is what Google Earth says you should see. Look, the stars are rising up because the plane is just riding over, and their view of the stars is going up. Right? So Google Earth, which added curvature in 2001, I think, it used to be flat, disagrees with observable reality. Observable reality shows us they're not precessing. These stars are just staying. They're just rotating a little bit because they're rotating, but they're not going down as the plane dives down. They're not going up. It should appear to go up. Make sense?
I've got another question from Pete. Pete, can you come on? Hey, Pete, or listening?
Yes. Yeah, I'm here. Sorry, I had to unmute.
No worries.
So yeah, I agree with a lot of the proofs about the flat Earth. It raises some questions, and there's one observation I'd like to point out too, is that I noticed that every space launch, when you follow the trajectory of the spaceship, they always at the very end, they always go off at an angle and start to flatten out instead of going straight up into space forever. I always found that kind of strange. So, but my question is, it's really like if you accept the flat Earth, then there's some things that are unexplained. Like, what really is a satellite then? They're launching a whole bunch of these things up into the upper atmosphere, if you want to just say that. But what are they? How do they stay up there? Do you have any answers to that?
I do. I have great answers. You got I'm getting an echo. But as unmuted. You guys hear that? Yeah, that's better. I'm good. So satellites. All right. So I want to come back to seasons though, because of the question from a moment ago. But let's go back to satellites for a minute because that's another great one. Here's the thing. Elon Musk putting up Starlink. Have anyone seen Starlink? They cruise through the sky. They're amazing. And it works. You can get Starlink service. You can get Wi-Fi on your boat in the middle of the ocean. All right. So there is something to do that. Right. So I'm trying to just pull this up. Is this satellites? Well, first here's NASA launching a satellite off the space shuttle. So let's just first, if satellites were real, why would we catch them faking this? Watch this. You're going to see the wire. Ready? And there it is. See the wire? Did you see it?
I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a wire. Okay. But forget that. Forget the fact that they're faking it. So how does the satellite
low orbit space? You believe in low orbit space, right?
I believe in up to 72 miles. That's it. There's nothing that goes higher.
Exactly.
So satellites are on balloons. They're called satelloons, and NASA controls 99% of the helium in the world, and they have tens of thousands of these things floating in the sky at all times. Now, I don't believe that these satellites are doing all the things that we think that they're doing. Most of this stuff is ground-based, right? But they're claiming it's satellites. And every time a satellite crashes on Earth, it has a balloon attached to it. So it's not a theory. These things.
In the Dominican, they had crews collecting the satellites. They did testing, and it was always balloons.
Yeah, there's always balloons, and
I don't know where else. But.
They know how to there we go. They know how to move these things around, because did you know that every day, worldwide, twice a day in almost 1,000 locations, like 960 locations, they launch a weather balloon at the exact same moment, twice a day, every day, 1,000 of them twice a day, everywhere. And all of that information is fed back into a supercomputer, and they can map out these winds up there, these wind currents, and they can make these satellites go up and down into whatever wind current they want and keep them geostationary. They can keep them wherever they want. They can move them wherever they want. And these things are out there all the time. But let's talk about. I want to go back to Starlink, because that's the one that they're really getting everybody with. And at least I could find where I put the Starlink thing. All right, so here is, well, first, here's a 747 on the ground, gigantic plane. Here it is up top, really difficult to see. And a Starlink satellite is way, way, way smaller than the engine on an airplane. Okay? Mm-hmm. So here's my Starlink one. Give me 1 second. Oh, here we go. So if you've ever seen Starlink, this is what it looks like. I was out on a boat one evening. It's early evening. All of a sudden, I'm like, whoa, there it is. And then if you listen, if you're quiet, you'll hear a jet fighter in front of them and a jet fighter behind them. To me, I think these things are very low. And I think that whatever it is, they want to make sure some guy in a Cessna doesn't go, oh, what the heck is that? Let me go over there. And they're literally guarding whatever it is. But forget all that. Forget all that. If this is, they say Starlink is like the size of, they said it's the size of a human. They will never show us. Let's say it's the size of a friggin' car, okay? The size of a station wagon, right? It's smaller than that. How could you see it at the distance? Here is a 747, and there's a 747 flying, and it's 7 miles high, right? Starlink, you can probably fit a dozen of them inside of the engine, right? There's a guy standing right here. That's how big the 747 is. You can't even see him, right? Right? So at 7 miles high, you can't see the engine. But these Starlink satellites are 340 miles high, and you think you can see them with your naked eye, even if they were lit up like a Christmas tree? Whatever those things are, they're really low. And they're here to fool us. But how does it work? How does it work? This is how it works, right? So you know how cell towers work. Whoops, that's not what I wanted. You know how cell towers work, right? Here we go. Where is it?
And somebody asked about the emergency landings, which is a really good point.
Yeah.
About how they have to reroute these flight patterns. That was pretty impressive fact to me, because what are they hiding? I mean, it doesn't make any sense when they have to make emergency landings, how they're rerouting everything. It's actually a good one for people I think to look up on your site.
Right. I'll get there in a second. I just want to show you. I wish my Starlink explanation. Give me 1 second. Satellites. Okay. Is this it? Nope, that's not it. Oh, here we go. All right, so we know how cell towers work. They got all these cell towers. They have their range, and you could drive through them, and you never lose your signal, right? I drove from South Jersey to Connecticut. I was on the phone for like 2.5 hours. Never lost a call. Beautiful. If you were standing still and those towers were all moving, it would still work as long as you were inside the range of one of them. If those towers were taller, they'd have bigger circles and you need less towers. Everybody understand that? Right? You understand this? Yeah. Am I following? So what does a cell tower need? It needs electricity. It needs to be serviced every once in a while. Things go wrong. And they need to be everywhere. They need to be in visible range. They need to be in visible range. So they need power. They need to be in visible range. You have these satellites, impossibly falling through a space vacuum, following all the motions of the Earth, speeding up and slowing down. None of that makes sense. What does make sense is what already has that equipment on it. It's serviced every day, has electricity, and they're everywhere. And the answer is airplanes. Commercial airliners are everywhere. And all you have is you're getting broadcasts from these commercial airliners. Your satellite phone is just a strong cell phone that's on the right frequency that can connect to that 747 flying above you. That 747 will relay it to the closest tower or to another plane, to another tower. And then once you're connected, you're connected. I flew to Austin, Texas. I was on the Roseanne Barr show last month. And on the plane, I uploaded 3 videos. I edited stuff. I was checking emails. I was communicating with people on all different platforms. Not a hitch the whole time. That's all it is. All of this is done is just done through airplanes. So there we go.
So emergency landings.
Yes. Yeah. I'll just do it here on the plane on the app. If I just type in emergency, oops. So here's one. So this is a flight from Hong Kong. Oops, I'm showing you. Sorry about that. I have to go here. Sorry about that. So here's a flight from Hong Kong. It was going all the way over to the UK. 12-hour flight. 4 hours into the flight, a mother died suddenly. Weird, right? And she's with her small kids, her husband. She's dead in her seat. They got to land, right? Normally, if someone's having an issue, they land. Dead. They flew for 8 more hours before they landed. Why didn't they land? They ended up landing in Germany. And I'm like, that's 8 hours. The kids are permanently damaged anyway. You might as well just got them home. Flew another hour. But they didn't land there because on a flat Earth, Hong Kong to London is over Russia. So 4 hours in, they're over Russia. If they landed, 2 things would have happened. Russia would have been very helpful, and that could spark world peace. And if they landed there, people like me and other flat earthers could go, you landed in Russia because the earth is flat, and it would have woken up everybody, but they couldn't have that proof. So they literally flew for 8 more hours with that poor mother on there. Here's one from New York to Hawaii. And right about here, there was an emergency. They flew 1,000 miles out of the way to Seattle. Why? Why didn't they land in California or wherever, right? And the answer is because if you look at it on a flat Earth map, New York, Seattle's right on there, Hawaii. This happens again and again and again. Here's one, Dallas to Beijing, right? And it's went all the way to Calgary. Emergency happened right here. Why didn't they just land over here in California? They went all the way up there, but if you look at it on a flat Earth map, amazing. Calgary's right on that line. It's really weird that every time they do this, they always land where that works on a flat Earth map. They had from Doha to Chicago, they went all the way up to Moscow. But if you look at it on a flat Earth, Moscow's right on that straight line, right? And it's not just emergency landings; it's all southern flights, right? On southern flights, it's absolutely unbelievable, ridiculous. The Globers will make excuses saying, "Oh, they go out of the way because they have a hub there. They got to change pilots. People stopping." The World Cup happened in Doha. Buenos Aires team won. They had their own plane. No one else is on the plane. They want to get home. They went to Rome to get fuel. Wrong direction. And then they went to Buenos Aires. Look at it on a flat Earth map. Doha, Rome, Buenos Aires.
Yeah. The flight patterns are, when you go over them over and over and over again, you're like, this makes no sense whatsoever.
So, you think about this. Northern hemisphere is on the top. Equator's in the middle. Southern hemisphere is on the bottom. You have thousands and thousands and thousands of airports that are all in the north. You can take any 2 airports, anyone. You can spend weeks and weeks and weeks. Select any 2 airports, look at the flight path. None of them ever cross the equator. Doesn't make sense. Why would it? Why would you ever have to go below the equator to get back above the equator? You would just go to the location. And guess what? None of them ever do. And it makes perfect sense. In the South, the same thing should be true. From any southern airport to any other southern airport, it should never cross the equator, but they almost all do. They almost all do. Right?
Can Judy ask a question here?
Yeah, absolutely.
Judy.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Hi, Judy.
Hey, how are you?
Good, good.
This is very interesting. Where were you when I was in school?
Where was I when I was in school?
Yeah. Well, I just want to say I'm a retired flight attendant. I have been in 3 emergency landings, and the first one was we were going to Dulles, and we had a Ford cargo fire, and we had to divert to Richmond, Virginia, because of the runways and because they didn't want anyone in Dulles or Reagan because they're highly protected. The second one, we were going to Chicago, and we did the Midway Airport, and it's a shorter runway. So they diverted us to Dallas-Fort Worth. And then the third one was to Atlanta on the same flight. And one day I did 2 emergency landings.
Wow.
That's the one, Carrie, that messed up my eardrum.
Oh, yeah. No.
Yes. We were down on the ground within about 10 minutes at 32,000 feet because the fire was so bad underneath the plane. And, but then coming back home, that airplane we had an emergency landing, but we did land in Atlanta for that one. But I was just wondering if that goes to what you're saying, because they saved the run, which I understand that Midway is a short runway.
Right. Well, in the North, and especially just flying in the United States, there's not a big difference between a flat Earth map and a globe map. It's only when you go from continent to continent and southern continent to other southern continents, because you got to remember, they wrap the Earth. They take the flat Earth and they literally wrap it around a sphere. Where did my wrap go? I had it. Everything's changing on me. That's all right. They take the Earth and they wrap it so the southern continents all get kind of squished together. And in reality, they're farther apart. They're farther apart. And here's the thing: a lot of people say, well, on a flat Earth map, going from Santiago to Australia is too far. It would take too long, right? Because a flight from the U.S. to Beijing or whatever, it takes the same amount of time. Well, the answer is planes go at different speeds at different altitudes. There's 350 mile an hour jet streams up high that they know are up there, and they'll put planes in them. Here's an azimuthal equidistant wind map. Let me just change it to a high altitude, and you'll see out here these winds are going like 300, 300 miles an hour, right? And there's counter rotating winds, so they can put you in any of these things and get you to your destination when they need. These planes are these planes go at different speeds. People just like, how can that be if these 2 flights take the same time? This is all planned. Guess who's in charge of all international flight routes? NASA. The deceivers at NASA, not a space agency. National Aquatic Swim Association.
I mean, I think the whole point of this is not to tell people like, okay, now you have to make a decision, flat Earth, round Earth, for me. It's that I want people to open up their eyes and their minds to that we've been lied to about a lot of things.
Right.
And to start questioning everything, use your own, deductive reasoning, critical thinking skills, and don't belittle someone because they think something different than you. Just say, hey, let's go look at the evidence, go look at these things. Let's investigate together. Isn't that a great idea?
The people that fight against flat Earth the most don't even know their own model. It's amazing. It's truly amazing. They're like, oh, how do you explain the moon phases on the Earth, on the flat Earth? Because they think the moon phases are caused by the globe Earth. That's not even their model, right? They don't even know their own model, right?
I mean,
So
to me, I have a really weird view. I think it's a donut shape. I think we have a toroidal field.
we
making
do.
up
We're in a toroidal field. You're absolutely
Yeah.
right. You're
And
absolutely
that's
right.
kind of like what Vegas was trying to show people out there. It's a sphere on the outside, but it's really kind of an energy sphere, like a hologram. Door. It's going like this. Inside, really, it's flat. That we're living on.
Could be
Yes,
like that.
exactly. That's exactly how I see it in my mind's eye. That's what we live.
That's what we live. It's called the domain
Yeah.
block wall. We live on this
Right.
toroidal field. We're electrical beings inside of this electrical system.
Plasma.
Yeah, it's all amazing that way.
So this is why I believe in, we can go through, you can call them wormholes, portals, whatever, because we're going through a plasma field. It's bendable, foldable, shapeable, time space is moldable, quantum physics, because this is totally different than what we were taught in school, of course. But I want people not to just be so angry with each other and say, you're flat Earth. So just start opening our minds up to, we've been lied to. This is obvious.
They've got people to the point where people will fight over this, like people will lose relationships. In here, I have added 2 new buttons recently. I got this old world button with the griffin on it. If you haven't looked into the old world, on my website, flatearthdave.com, there's a big banner that says Old World Order. Start there, okay? It's a free video. Just watch it. Google won't feed it to you. But I also have a biblical button. And when you click that, there's all sorts of biblical stuff here. There's a great course by this pastor. His name's spacing on me right now. Marty Leitz, excuse me, does Sunday morning service. He swears a lot, but he's awesome. But he uses it in a really loving way. So not for everybody. But the biblical stuff right here, 24/7 feed, biblical, amazing kids course on biz creation science. Mind-blowing stuff. But in this biblical course one, I think one of the top videos there is one called Dear Pastor. It's an 8-minute video. And it's I'd say it's the best intro video to somebody that is a Bible believer, but doesn't know about flat Earth. It literally will open your mind and just show you all of these verses and stuff. And then in here, there's also 200 biblical verses, a video called 200 Bible verses. And it's mind-blowing. There's nothing in the Bible that talks about planets. It talks about the Earth is stationary. It's like a seal pressed into clay. There's a firmament. God separated the waters from the waters. There's waters above us, waters below us, primary water.
Have you seen through the telescope, really good telescope? I had one before. The planets, Venus, etc., they look like plasma balls. They're moving. It's not a solid mass when you're looking and when you actually go and you're able to focus in on it. It's like an energy wave almost. It's crazy.
Right.
I was shocked. I'm like, wait a minute. This is not at all what I thought it was before.
Right. When we look at stars, this is what stars are. Okay. What are these? Here's my thing. We're corkscrewing through space, moving 4 different directions at once, traveling billions of miles every year.
Stars always look like that, exactly what you're showing.
Never to return to where we were before, but never once have 2 stars changed position due to parallax. When things move that are closer, farther, stars are hundreds of trillions of miles away, trillions of miles away. They're all over the place. They say that 80% of the stars in our galaxy are binary, which means they're going around each other while they're going around, while the galaxy's spinning. But never once in history have 2 stars changed position. Never once have they crossed each other. That would be impossible. That would happen every single day, right? Over time, none of the stars ever moved. To me, I think stars are angelic. They might be angels, and they're perfect, and they don't need to move because they're perfect.
I think we're using the wrong science model to try to explain these things, and that's our problem. And that's why we keep arguing with one another. If we go more into the quantum physics and understanding that, it explains the Bible so much better. It opens up the world to the supernatural and how things can happen. Translocation, bilocation, translation, all these amazing things, transfiguration. I mean, you can't perfectly explain it, but it totally opens up the idea. And then realms, right? How more than one kind of place can exist in the same time space. I mean, this is the problem, is we were not taught the proper science purposely. And so here we are, we're arguing because we're going in an antiquated system. And this is my idea. But my hope and pray, and I want to share this everywhere. And I don't care what people call me, who cares, right? I want them to think, and I want them to debate and have a healthy debate, and be able to ask questions and not, condemn the other person, because we need to start working together, you guys. We're on the same side, remember? We're not supposed to be fighting amongst each other. But once we start to know the truth is always going to lead us back to our Father Creator.
Right. So I built this app and it bypasses the algorithm, right? You can find it at flatearthdave.com. The app is $3. There is a subscription for some higher functions, which you don't need right away. It's $11 a year. You can also get it for free if you just refer the app to a few people. There's a ton of stuff on here. There's also a matchmaker on here, where you can find other like-minded people. It'll blow your mind, because all of these, we call them blue dots, right? All of these blue dots are people that are awake and aware and unjabbed, and
they have flat Earth weddings. That would be fun.
Oh, there's flat Earth babies already. Come on, there's flat Earth babies. So this is just here in the United States. I mean, the UK, it's doing it's amazing. And this just represents a small portion of the amount of flat earthers that there are in the world. Australia, Sydney, right? There's flat earthers everywhere. And it's if the earth was a globe, there would be no flat earthers, because there would be a proof, but there are no proofs of the globe.
Someone asked, what are the blue dots? Somebody said no.
So the blue dots are these are all people. The ones that have a person in them means they have a profile, and you can go like, here's my profile. Oops, let me go over here.
Oh, you're available?
I'm not available. I'm not available, but it's kind of like a Facebook wall, and you can do all sorts of stuff on here. And you can meet people, and you can message people. There's
like-minded people,
and you can have group calls, you can have video calls. So in the matchmaker, you can say, all right, I'm looking for a male or a female between this age group, within X, with whatever radius you select. You say 100 miles or 1,000 miles, however far you're willing to look, and then you start chatting with them, and it's amazing. And there's the meetup maker, where you set up a meetup, and you tell, it notifies everybody within your radius that you're having a meetup, and then people show up.
Oh, good.
It's truly, it's an amazing app. And if you're,
I love this talk, Dave. So thank you. Yeah. I'm going to have one more question, if you don't mind.
Yeah, no problem. Flatearthdave.com is where everything is. Follow my YouTube channel. So I do a lot of interviews. I've done over 1,300 interviews since 2021. And I was just on Roseanne Barr. That's a really good one. I was just on, it just came out today, actually, yeah. Luke's Story. Do you know Luke's Story? He's it's a very big podcast. It's awesome. It was in studio in Austin when I was there, and it just came out today. It's I think it's 3.5 hours. It's really a good one. But all of my stuff can be found on my website. There's a big banner that says latest interviews. Also on the app, latest interviews. And you can find all my interviews there. Right. So go ahead. Sorry.
Gregory, you have a question.
Hi, Carrie. It's really interesting. My wife and I enjoy it. And she's been trying to educate me on a lot of this stuff for some time. And you're putting a lot of the pieces together. I still have a ton of questions. But the main question I have regarding so much of this is, why have they deceived us for so long? I mean, back to Magellan and back to the first people. Yep. Was it the Pope and the Catholic Church? What was the motivation? And It had to be money and power, in my opinion. But what's the motivation to spend billions of dollars a day on NASA when it'd be so much cheaper and more reasonable just to tell everybody the truth?
Yeah, because if they tell people the truth, then people unplug from their fear matrix, and they realize that, hey, They have us believing we live on a ball, which is limited. We're running out of oil. We're overpopulated. An asteroid's going to hit us. Nuclear bomb's going to blow us up. Well, I'm going to touch on that before we're done. And that keeps you living in fear, and that keeps you following the government, the mind control. If you unplug and realize that you are in God's world, the natural world, it's a whole different existence. You take away their power. You're born, in a hospital. They quickly inject you so you don't get hepatitis or whatever. They vaccinate you. They give you a birth certificate. They trade you on the stock market, and they tell you live on a ball. That's the first thing you learn in school. You live on a ball, and all space movies and everything, because then you are limited, right? It stops you from thinking outside of the box. It stops you from understanding the true power that we have. So, NASA was created right after they discovered the dome in Antarctica, I think, and we were told that. You mentioned Magellan and all this stuff. These are stories. I don't think most of these people actually existed. I think they're just stories from our past that they made up, because I think that